Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon, you nerd. Yo, what's going on? It's your boy Mike from 424 Recording. I gotta say, what a difference a week makes. I'm back after last week. The podcast I'm Feeling Lost. Thanks to everybody who reached out and with some encouragement or just, saying, hey man, I felt like this way before. A lot of other people feel this way. It's all gravy, baby. I really appreciate that. I really say this is the best community I've ever been a part of, and thanks for making 424 Recording and all the things Jay and I are doing here something special. Thanks for being a part of the Task fam. I appreciate that, and it's really cool to know that I can put these ideas out into the world and have some sort of validation. That it's okay to feel that way, and and etc. So, and another side note on that, I didn't mean for it to be this because some people kind of seem like, I don't know, maybe I just seemed depressed, or some people were overly worried about me. I want to say, don't feel any desire or need to worry about me or where I'm at. I've been doing pretty well in terms of all that stuff, and I didn't mean for it to be a video, that made people worry about me or any of the ways I was feeling. I thought it was just important to kind of document the way I was feeling and kind of talk it out, and I felt really great. It was a very cathartic experience, and this week has just been so much better in terms of so many things, and a lot of the ways I was feeling have kind of fallen away, and which brings me to why I wanted to do this podcast this week. And I'm obviously not trying to, I don't know, I think mental illness is a really important facet of life, and having people talk about the way they feel, and having gone through things and dealt with things myself, I think it's not something. I'm not trying to minimize that, I guess, is what I'm saying. But what I wanted to get at this week, after thinking about it some more, maybe as kind of a follow-up to last week's episode, is, and maybe the title of this podcast, using your doubts as a superpower, or turning your doubts into superpowers. Basically, this past week was really thinking about why I was feeling so lost, and whether I really figured that out or not, or whether I got to the bottom of it or not. I was looking at it as if I was filling up all these, ideas about my own doubt and what I was doing and where I'm heading and etc. And I was filling up a lot of thoughts with that, filling up a lot of empty airspace with that, I guess. And the reason I'm saying this, I think, in one way you can look at that as this negative thing, or feeling lost, or not sure where you're at or where you're going. And then this week for me, I kind of was looking at that stuff and almost as if it was fuel canisters that I was filling up, and even the break itself was a way of letting the fields go fallow and creating kind of some dead space to really think about and reassess what I've been doing and take a step back. I think that's super important as a creative person, and just for anybody in life in general. That's what vacations are for, right? Shout out to Levy, actually. He was talking to me about this and saying I was crazy for wanting to take a vacation, and that it's important to take a vacation because you get so caught up in go go go, rah rah rah, that New York mentality, that New York energy or whatever. That's become, people say hustle porn, that kind of shit. This idea of the hustler, and this idea of always needing to be going a million miles an hour, and it's important to work hard, and that's something I've been doing for the past year in terms of my hobbies and in terms of my music and in terms of this channel. As a channel that encompasses all three of those things. And it is important to work hard, and I've seen what I can do by working hard, and I really enjoy working hard. But at the same time, it's also important to work smart, and it's also important to take care of yourself, your mental states, your mental habits, and also your physical states and physical habits. Hustling is only good up to a certain point, and even the word hustle, I think it's becoming more annoying than anything else in the lexicon of modern, speaking. I don't know. It's almost just a buzzword, and a lot of people say they're hustling, but what are they actually doing? What are they actually accomplishing? So anyway, what I wanted to say in terms of your doubts and using them as fuel, Because that's something, it seemed like a lot of wasted thoughts, or it seemed like a lot of, you know, spending time thinking about things. But what I realized was that, like I was saying, it's almost as if all those things I was feeling and thinking about, I could just let them be that and walk away from it, or I can use that energy to, I guess I think it's a Mark Twain quote about refilling your tanks and taking breaks. But what I was thinking was, even though I had these doubts, and even though I was in this position and still feel that a little bit, and the ennui and everything we were saying last week, like I said, it's almost as if I was filling up gas tanks with this doubt. And I had kind of a breakthrough this week with working on some things. I think that's as far as I'm going to go in terms of what I've worked on, because I don't really want to unveil that yet. But suffice to say, what wound up happening was this ability to take those doubts I was feeling and people's feedback on what they were saying and my own thoughts about it and thinking more about it, and using those to, fuel this new direction I'm taking and thinking about. And it just comes down to, I don't know, like almost taking those doubts and that energy, whether it's negative or positive, and putting it into something more positive, right? Because you can have this positive energy, hey, the sun's shining, it's a bright day, I'm going to go write a Beach Boys song. And that's awesome. You can take that positive energy and do that. And it's unfortunate that, you have negative energy sometimes and negative ideas, but it's kind of the same idea. Well, maybe you can take that negative energy, and although it's a negative, create something out of it, and express yourself out of it, and make something positive out of it. And I think some of my favorite artists, I think some of everybody's favorite artists do this kind of thing, like Elliott Smith, perfect example. Very overly sad, seeming depressed kind of guy, from what I understand. Had a lot of issues in his life, and the way he was treated when he was younger, and turned that into this amazing, beautiful art, and that a lot of people relate to, and a lot of people feel comforted by. And I think that's a perfect example of taking this negative energy and turning it into something positive, right? So that's kind of what I was trying to do, or what I did, really. What I really did this week. I took this like doubtful energy, this lost feeling energy, and siphoned it into this generator, or this engine of, songwriting. And I've been coming up with some really cool shit. I guess I'm spilling the beans now, but because I think if you've been following the channel, or following stuff in the videos, or on the Patreon, I've been kind of had a little bit of writer's block. Not so much writer's block in terms of instrumentals. Like, for some reason I can always write instrumentals, but a big part of the process of writing songs for me is the lyrics. And usually the lyrics, and writing lyrics and singing them, and the melodies are what drives the song overall. I can build the car, I can shine it up nice, but really what gets it moving is the lyrics, and dictating part lengths and things of that nature. So that's really what always blocks me the most. And kind of what I figured with doing this, where I've been going is kind of using those doubts to inform the lyrics. And it also comes back to a lot of it is kind of like not caring, and also making fun of those doubts, I suppose, but also exploring them as well. So it's interesting to me that, unfortunately, like some of the stuff I've written over the years, a lot of the better stuff, or stuff that people like, are negative or critical of other people that I've come encounter with, or kind of like a story about that, or informed by that, or started out from a nonfiction standpoint and then kind of elaborated on in sort of a fictional way, and just bottled those ideas and feelings into something, like take anything on Just a Trick, for example. There's a lot of songs where they could be, you could think they're like negative, or about people, or about certain types of people, and for some reason that tends to make it very easy to write songs. Like, I have a really hard time writing happy sounding things about happy things. I don't know why. That's kind of just always been my vibe. I don't know. Even when I was in like a band, this band called Prize Fighter at one point. It was, you know, more moody, emo kind of stuff. And I found writing the lyrics for it to be super easy because it was, I don't know, maybe that just occupy that place somewhere in my mind, even though I don't think my outward, you know, personality is like that. It just comes very naturally to me. I don't know. And so, you know, rather than try to force something that doesn't really work, you know, I wish I could write Beach Boys-esque stuff, Beatles-esque stuff, you know, but lyrically, and I don't know, that's just not my vibe. Well, you know, sometimes I wish it was, but I don't know. Maybe that's my whole reason I do make music, right? Is to sit with those feelings and turn them into something positive, you know, express myself, express the way I feel, you know, for whatever reason, not sure where it comes from. So, but I guess my point was that I don't know. You know, sometimes that stuff is where the creative inspiration comes from, and I don't think it's worth trying to shut the valve off. You know, I think it's probably more dangerous to not let that stuff come out and to make something with it. So, and when I realized like lyrically, this is part of the issue. Two things that I want to not forget about talking about right now is Peter, Bjorn, and John. I think the band is. I might be. I should have looked this up, but they have that song, I believe, and it's on an album called Writer's Block. Young Folks, I think it's called. And I remember like hearing about the story behind that album. I think from my buddy Chris, who's a drummer that used to play with Be Cool Cowboy. You know, still on the roster if we ever do stuff. Chris, what up? If you're out there, I'm going to interview him soon. Really cool guy. I mentioned before he used to play drums on a cruise ship, and you know, but that'll be another story for another time. But he turned me on to the process of that album because it's called Writer's Block. It was actually a period of time where the band felt like they were going through a blocked period of creative inspiration, and the drum beat on that song, the drummer said something along the lines of, "I just tried to, you know, come up with the stupidest kind of drum beat I could, or like a drum beat that I thought was bad," right? And it turns out like that song is not maybe one of their best known songs, or one of their most popular tracks. I think even the lyrics and things of that nature, they all kind of approached it in this different sense, and wound up not only because I don't really believe in writer's block. I don't know. I think you can always kind of come up with something, even if it's not something you want to come up with. You know, sometimes coming up with something that's really silly to you or stupid, you know, creates another flame of something else that burns even brighter, right? Like even if you, wrote a song that you thought was dumb, but there was like one line in it that you thought was okay, you could then rewrite the whole song based on that line and have a really sick song. You know, that's how writing works. That's how novels are made. That's how scripts are written. You know, it's not always just comes out in one shot. It's, you know, books and novels and nonfiction things. Like from my experience, it's drafts. It's you write a first draft, brainstorm draft, vomit idea draft, and whatever you do, just get start to finish, figure out your plot, etc. And then it's a combing of that. And there's been times and stories about books and things written to go along with this idea of the lyrics and taking that line. You know, some writers have said that took them 50 pages in before they realized those first 50 pages they just got rid of, and that the story should start where page 51 starts, and that's part of the process, you know. So that's what I'm saying is like, I don't know. I think there's times when you're on, and most of the time you're off, and if you can sit with that time when you're off and just keep working through that off time, when you do come back online and when you do feel inspired, it's going to be like boom, bing, bam, boom, you know. And I think that's really the importance of, I remember a friend of mine at one point, a writer friend and poet, said that, you know, 15% of the time was when they were really crushing it, and the other 85% was, you know, that idea of like writing is trying to make a blood drop come out of a piece of paper, right? It's really hard work, but if you work through those 85% of the time where you're having a really hard time doing something, it's just going to make you even stronger when you get to the point of that 15% when it's like it's just flowing out of you, right? Which also reminds me of Bukowski quote. I think he said like the best writing is like when you take a shit after like an all-night bender of drinking or something. You know, it just all kind of fucking comes out. And I think there's a lot of truth to that. It's kind of a gross analogy, but I think it gets to the point of there are times when it is spilling out of you, but you can't always be on that bender. You can't always have that. Can't always have that be the way the sieve is open, the way the valve is open. It doesn't work like that. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, even if you write something silly, even if you feel like you're blocked creatively in terms of writer's block, even if you can just come up with one word, one line, one idea out of a whole song that you think is dumb, maybe that will become the germ, the inspiration. I think that goes along with Young Folks by Peter Bjorn and John. From what I understand of the story, I may not be paraphrasing it correctly, but that was my interpretation of it. And the other thing I was going to say too, I think it comes back to a certain element of, I've noticed for me, and I think a lot of people, you can't care too much about your creative process or about the process of something. I think a really funny take on this is from the movie Forgetting Sarah Marshall, I think it is. Yeah. It's Paul Rudd and Jason Segel, I believe his name is, and he's trying to teach Paul Rudd how to surf in Hawaii, and he keeps trying to tell him pop up and like this is how you got to do it, and he keeps it's supposed to be like a funny comical thing, but I think it's really poignant in terms of this conversation, and he's like, no, you're not doing it right, do less, and then he jumps up again and kind of the same way, and he's like, no, do less, and then he doesn't jump up at all, and then he's like, well, you got to do something. And I think that's kind of the crux of it, is like, you got to care enough, but not too much. You got to do the right amount, but not too much. And that's for me, I just stopped caring about a lot of this shit, and a lot of the things I was caring about in terms of I was almost had too much expectations, right? I was trying to do too much, and it made sense to just I don't know, take a step back and in terms of the lyric writing, and just not care as much, do less, And at one point I was popping up too much in terms of the surf analogy, and then the other point I wasn't doing enough, and then I kind of figured this perfect spot of not really caring as much, and also almost making fun of what I was doing in a way. And I don't know. For me, I think that dichotomy of I think that's what makes, for me, what makes lyrics great is when there's something a very silly element to it, but also one of well-crafted ideas and puns and analogies and things like that. And sometimes you can get into a position where you're doing too much and you gotta just do less. And I don't know. It's funny because the whole not caring thing, it's weird because you want to care so much about the creations you make in the world, but at the same time, at least in my experience, you gotta kind of, I don't know, just care about them enough, and when it comes to the doubts and this entire conversation, turning doubts into superpowers, using that as the fuel to turn it into something more than just this negative emotion, I think is the superpower. And I think if you can, obviously it's important to sit with your doubts and examine them, but it gets to a point where a lot of the questions that I ask about reality and daily reality in the universe, they're never questions I don't think I'm ever going to know the answer to. And it only goes so far. It's not something you can figure out. It's not something, it's okay to think about those things for me, and it's fun to think about those things, and it can put me in places that are good and bad, but at the end of the day, it's I don't know, it's important to be able to move on from that and take whatever those things are and use them in a positive way for me. And I think just being able to turn the tide like that sometimes, is really important. And well, I don't know. Well, yeah, it is really important. I didn't mean to say I don't know. It's really important for me. It's an important skill for me to have learned, and I don't know if maybe it's something that you do as well and something you figured out as well. But I also wanted to just make this as a follow-up to last week. It's also just January, man. January in the Northeast is fucking miserable. Today's the first day the sun's been out in a long time, and I think that's a big part of it. But I noticed like January, it's like very cyclical for me. January is always a rough month. I don't know why. It seems like it wouldn't be because it's the start of a new year and a chance to turn it all around. No, I think every day is a chance to turn it all around. You don't need a new year to do that. But you know, uh, it's just weird. I think January seems like it could be a very positive month, and I like the winter. It's not February, it's not mid-March where it's still brutal out most of the time. So I don't know. I think that's just how I roll. I don't know if it's the sunlight, lack of sunlight, lack of exercise. Maybe something bad happened to me a long time ago in January and that still sits with me subconsciously. I don't know. I don't know. But I'm doing good. I'm doing all right. Thank you so much, everybody who reached out this past week. I really appreciate it. It's nice to know I'm not alone out here thinking about these things. And I'm glad I can put that out and have it be something, a positive, in the end, a positive way to turn it all around. So, all right, well, we're like 20 minutes in. I was trying to think if I had one other point, other conclusion to make about this. I thought I did, but I can't think of it. I guess in terms of just self-doubt and taking your doubts, I don't know. I don't want those to become who I am, and if there's a way to make them become something positive in the form of art, in the form of creation, in the form of a podcast, that even if one other person listens to it and feels better about their position and things and how things are looking, and knowing that you're not alone in these thoughts, like that's what it's all about, man. I think that's what it's all about, Again, going along with the creative, destructive idea, it's like can be destructive to sit with those doubts and be negative, but if you can create that into something that's positive and guides other people or lets other people know they're not alone in this crazy journey out here, all the more power to you. So there you go. I hope you have a great day. Make sure you do something you want to do, all right? I definitely will be myself, and yeah, things are going great. Things are looking up, and it's important to take that negativity and use it as fuel for something positive. All right, we'll catch you on the flip-flop, fam. Peace.